Hello and welcome to this special broadcast here on WION. I have with me Ms. Preeti Saran, Secretary East in the Ministry of External Affairs of India, to talk about India-ASEAN relations, especially in light of the Republic Day celebrations and the India-ASEAN commemorative summit. Ms. Saran, thank you for making time to speak to WION.
Thank you.
And for the first time, not one, not two, but 10 heads of state of government will come together for the Republic Day celebrations. Now, how did that come about?
Well, we are absolutely honored and privileged that all the 10 leaders from the ASEAN countries have kindly accepted our leadership's invitation to be guests of honor for the Republic Day. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of India-ASEAN relations. 5 years back, we had done a similar summit to commemorate 20 years of India-ASEAN friendship. And this is the 25th year. It's an important year, and therefore our Prime Minister invited all the leaders for a commemorative summit, and that will take place on 25th of January. The following day happens to be our Republic Day, and we feel that to have 10 leaders from the ASEAN countries as our guests of honor is the biggest privilege for us. It also shows the importance India attaches to its relations with all the 10 countries of ASEAN and how ASEAN is a fulcrum in India's Act East policy.
Interesting, because every time we talk about ASEAN, two key phrases come to one's mind. The first is Act East, which refers to India's Act East policy. The other is Indo-Pacific. Now, this has gained currency of late. If you can explain to our viewers about the meaning and significance of each of these two catchphrases.
So you would remember that in the 1990s, we had articulated what was called the Look East policy. And under that policy, we had in fact the government and our business community had in fact paid greater attention to the dynamic East of India, which is Asia. And we all know that Asia, the 21st century is going to be the Asian century. Today, India is one of the fastest growing larger economies in the world. The 10 ASEAN countries also are very dynamic and growing at an average about 6% per annum. We see immense potential in collaborating with them. We have very strong historical civilizational ties with them. In the last 25 years of our engagement with ASEAN, our relationship has moved from a sectoral partnership to a dialogue partnership to a summit level partnership. For the last 15 years, the Prime Minister of India has annually attended the India-ASEAN Summit and also participated in the East Asia Summit since 2005. And that shows the importance that Government of India attaches to its relations with all the countries east of India, and we see immense potential. And when we convert the Look East policy into an Act East policy, it is really to implement, make it more action-oriented, go beyond simply economic cooperation and integration, to also encompass political security, strategic, greater people-to-people contact, greater connectivity. And this is what we would like to define our Act East policy as. Coming to the Indo-Pacific region, it might be talked about recently, but I can tell you that this is not a new phrase. The Indo-Pacific region has been talked about by Indian academics for quite some time, and it is exactly what it means. There are two oceans, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, and there is this huge economic space where there is so much potential, where in fact our own goods move through these waters, 40% of our own trade, and 2/3 of world trade passes through these waters of the Indo-Pacific region. It is therefore important that this particular region remains the center of peace, prosperity, and that is where there is greater discussion about the Indo-Pacific.
And when you talk about Act East policy, now this policy is anchored in the India's northeast. Now these are states which are landlocked and some of which have contiguous borders, international borders with some ASEAN countries. So what's in it for those northeastern states when you talk about Act East policy, India-ASEAN relations?
That's an excellent question, and I have to mention that when we say we look east to our extended neighborhood, particularly keeping the development of our northeastern states. As you rightly pointed out, they're the ones who are the land bridge between India and the ASEAN countries. In fact, Government of India is working on two very important projects. One is a trilateral highway that will move from Manipur down Myanmar to Thailand, and in turn we are in discussions to further integrate this particular highway to the ASEAN Master Plan for Connectivity. There is separately another discussion that we have undertaken in the BIMSTEC context. Now, BIMSTEC comprises of 5 countries from South Asia and 2 countries from Southeast Asia. So again, BIMSTEC is an ideal bridge, and we are in fact in discussions on building what is called a BIMSTEC plan for connectivity. But coming back to the Northeast region, we have of course the Kaladan multimodal project and this trilateral highway. We're also helping build the Sitwe port in Myanmar, and these are going to be important elements of enhancing India's connectivity through our northeastern states to the East Asian region.
You spoke about BIMSTEC, so with SAARC in limbo, could BIMSTEC emerge possibly as the premier regional grouping in our part of the world?
Well, BIMSTEC stands on its own. BIMSTEC is not a new organization or a grouping. BIMSTEC, in fact, as we celebrate 25 years of India-ASEAN friendship, we are also celebrating 20 years of BIMSTEC. It is the 20th anniversary, and you'll recall that BIMSTEC got a major boost when our Prime Minister had invited all the BIMSTEC leaders in October 2016 for the BRICS BIMSTEC Outreach Summit. And that has given a major boost. Thereafter, we've had a foreign ministers meeting in August last year, and we've had an agenda action points on which we're working speedily. And we hope that Nepal, as the current chair, in fact not hope, but they have announced that they would be hosting a BIMSTEC summit in the course of this year. We look forward to participating in that summit. We are founder members of BIMSTEC. We remain very strongly committed to rejuvenating BIMSTEC. In fact, a lot has happened since the Goa summit to give BIMSTEC a major boost in terms of connectivity, in terms of security issues, in terms of maritime cooperation, in terms of tourism, disaster management, and a whole host of other activities.
And when we talk about India-ASEAN relations, how would you describe relations in terms of specific areas, for instance, defense, security, maritime security, or for that matter, counter-terrorism? So how would you describe those sectoral relationships?
These are very important areas for cooperation. Bilaterally, we have excellent relations with each of the 10 countries. And so therefore, our levels of cooperation as far as defense is concerned is a little more intense with some countries. However, we are in discussions. 9 of the 10 ASEAN countries are maritime nations. Like India, they are seafaring nations. And therefore, maritime cooperation is very important. Historically, we reached out to the Southeast Asian region through the maritime route. Our trade, religion like Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufi influence, all of that has in fact moved through these waters. And so water has been a huge connecting factor between India and ASEAN. And both of us, India and the ASEAN countries, face similar challenges as far as maritime issues are concerned, as far as maritime domain is concerned, whether it is piracy, whether it is terrorism through the maritime route, whether it is other traditional or non-traditional threats, whether it's trafficking of or narcotics, of human trafficking, natural disasters. We're all prone to natural disasters, including through cyclones, etc. So these are areas where we have already worked a lot, and we hope to enhance this further.
You spoke about religion and Buddhism. Now that brings me to our next question. Some countries, ASEAN, in the ASEAN region, look at, in terms of Buddhist circuit or Buddhist pilgrimage, what is India doing to attract more tourists from ASEAN in terms of infrastructure, easy visas, for instance, or visas on arrival?
So yes, Buddhism is a very important attraction for the Buddhist countries of ASEAN. Bodh Gaya in particular remains a very important pilgrimage center. There are other very important centers of pilgrimage, and there are in fact separate monasteries and temples established by different countries and different Buddhist sanghas of these various countries in Bodh Gaya, in Sarnath and other places. What have we tried to do to attract them? As you know already, overall India's tourism sector has shown a major boost. Both in the context of BIMSTEC as well as in ASEAN. We've undertaken several events to draw the attention of the ASEAN countries. In fact, just 2 weeks back, there was a major conference that was held at Nalanda University called the Dharma Dhamma Conference, where we had Buddhist monks, teachers, experts on Buddhism from the entire region to participate in that conference. Earlier in November last year, we had done a Bodhi Parv, once again to draw the attention of the strong Buddhist linkages that India has with the ASEAN countries. We are trying to build our infrastructure, whether it's roads, whether it's airports, whether it's ports, and we hope that that will facilitate, provide more in the hospitality sector, make it more attractive for pilgrims to come. Likewise, we have eased visas, and we will continue to work towards making it easier and more attractive for pilgrims in particular to visit India.
In conclusion, Ms. Saran, Prime Minister Modi can be expected to hold bilaterals with the ASEAN leaders. Now, what might they discuss and what might be some of the takeaways or outcomes from those bilateral talks on the margins of the summit?
We feel that, the presence of 10 leaders from ASEAN, and when we have very strong relations with each one of them, with 4 of them we enjoy a strategic partnership. When Prime Minister had visited Vietnam in September 2016, it was elevated to a special strategic partnership. ASEAN itself, we have a strategic partnership. So yes, there is a huge opportunity for our leadership to meet with the leaders present on a bilateral basis. Programs are still being drawn up. Already in the last 3 years, we have had very high-level exchanges with our Rashtrapati ji, our Uparashtrapati ji, and the Pradhan Mantri ji. The 3 leaders have visited all the 10 countries in the last 3 years. That shows the importance and the commitment of Government of India to each of these relations.
On that one, Ms. Saran, thank you so much for speaking to me and appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.